She did not cry when the papers were signed. In a quiet office with glass walls and polite smiles, she simply picked up the pen, wrote her name carefully, and slid the documents back across the table. No shaking hands, no dramatic pause, just a soft breath like someone finally letting go of something heavy. The man across from her barely looked at her. Everyone in the city knew his name. Billionaire, tech visionary, philanthropist. The man who donated millions to hospitals and schools, who smiled for cameras and spoke about integrity on television. And now her ex-husband. Outside that room, reporters waited, hoping for tears, accusations, or scandal. But she walked out alone, head down, expression calm. When someone whispered she lost everything, she did not turn back to correct them. They did not know what she had kept. After the divorce, she did not move into a luxury apartment or disappear with a settlement. She took a small rented room near the old part of the city and returned to work, not at some new company. At his company, the same towering glass building where she had once entered as the CEO's wife, greeted with respect and nervous smiles. Now she came in with an employee badge that barely opened the side entrance. Accounts assistant, temporary contract, no special treatment. Some coworkers felt sorry for her, some avoided her. A few whispered that she must have done something terrible to be divorced so quietly by such a powerful man. They did not know she had asked for nothing. Inside the office, she kept her head low, typing numbers, organizing invoices, answering emails that no one important would ever read. She never spoke about the past. Never corrected anyone when they pretended not to recognize her, but at night, alone in her room, she opened an old laptop, and she remembered. Years earlier, before the fame grew too big, she had helped him build the company from a rented garage and borrowed desks. She had handled early accounts, confidential files, contracts that no one else bothered to check. She had trusted him completely, until one evening by accident she opened the wrong folder. At first, it looked like charity records, donation transfers, medical grants, disaster relief funds, but the numbers did not match. Money left the foundation accounts and reappeared in private subsidiaries registered under fake names, then disappeared again. She had told herself it was a mistake. Until she followed one transfer to a shipping company, then to a private clinic, then to an offshore account labeled only with numbers. When she asked him about it gently, he smiled and said, "Business is complicated, don't worry about things that don't concern you." So she worried silently. She copied files, saved emails, kept screenshots, not because she wanted revenge, because she was afraid. After the divorce, she thought about destroying everything, forgetting, starting over, letting the powerful stay powerful. But then things at the company began to change. Good people were fired suddenly, longtime employees lost pensions without explanation. A charity hospital funded by the company closed overnight, leaving patients without treatment. In meetings, executives praised generosity while quietly cutting support to the weakest departments. And she started to recognize patterns. The same account numbers, the same shell companies, the same missing money. One afternoon, she overheard two senior managers talking in the hallway. They didn't notice her standing near the printer. The board will never suspect. The public image is too strong, and if someone talks, they won't. Nobody important would risk everything. She carried a stack of papers back to her desk with hands that felt too cold. Nobody important. That night she opened her old folder again. There were records of illegal trials disguised as medical research, payments routed through charities to hide the source. Evidence that donations meant for children's hospitals were being used to fund secret clinics overseas. And one final file, a list of names, patients, workers. People who had vanished after signing medical consent forms they did not understand. Her stomach turned. This was not just money, this was lives. For weeks she said nothing. She watched her ex-husband on television, opening a new children's wing at a hospital, smiling beside politicians, praised as a hero. She watched coworkers lose jobs, families struggle, departments shut down quietly. Every morning she came to work, invisible. Every night she carried the weight of knowing. One day, a young clerk in her department burst into tears at her desk. Her father had worked for the company for 20 years. His retirement fund had been restructured. There was nothing left. The girl kept apologizing for crying. "I don't know what we'll do," she whispered. Something inside her finally broke, not anger, resolve. She did not go to the police, not yet. She knew how power worked. Evidence could disappear, whistleblowers could be silenced. Instead, she began collecting more, quietly. She volunteered for extra data work. Offered to help audit old accounts. Stayed late to organize archives no one cared about. Nobody noticed. She was just the divorced woman who had fallen from luxury. Weeks passed. Her folder grew heavier, emails showing executives approving illegal transfers, contracts signed under false names, video conference recordings saved by mistake. In one document marked Private Board Review that described the entire operation in careful legal language. When she read it, she closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. This secret could destroy one of the most admired men in the country. It could also destroy her. One evening, as she left the building, she saw her ex-husband standing by the entrance, surrounded by investors. For a moment their eyes met. He smiled politely, as if she were a stranger. As if he had never trusted her with his life, as if he had no idea what she now held. That night she wrote one email, not to the press, not to a lawyer. To the internal ethics committee of the company, short, calm, no accusations. Just a line: I believe the next board meeting should review certain charity and medical fund transfers from the past 5 years. I have documentation. She did not sign her name. She attached nothing, then she closed the laptop and sat very still. The next day a company-wide announcement appeared. Emergency board meeting, mandatory attendance for all senior executives. Topic: Internal financial review. People whispered in corridors. Some executives looked nervous, others laughed it off. She went back to her desk and continued working. No one knew that in her bag, hidden between old notebooks, was a flash drive containing everything. She was not planning revenge, she was planning protection for the fired workers. For the sick patients, for the families who had lost everything without knowing why. As the board meeting began upstairs, she looked at the clock, took a slow breath, and finally understood something important. Silence was no longer kindness. And kindness did not always mean staying quiet. The boardroom lights were too bright for such a quiet woman. She stood near the wall, unnoticed, while men in tailored suits argued politely around a long table. Screens glowed with charts and reports that meant nothing to her anymore. At the head of the table sat the man who had once promised her honesty, now explaining profits and public image with the same smooth voice she remembered from their earliest years. Nobody invited her to speak. She was not even on the attendance list. She waited. The ethics committee chairman cleared his throat and announced that an anonymous message had raised concerns about charity fund transfers. Laughter moved lightly through the room. Someone joked that jealous employees often sent such emails. Her ex-husband smiled calmly. Transparency is the foundation of this company, he said. I welcome any review. That was when she stepped forward. Her voice did not tremble. I sent the message. The room fell silent so quickly it felt unreal. Dozens of eyes turned toward her. Recognition spread slowly. Someone whispered her name. Another person shifted uncomfortably. The billionaire stared at her, surprise flickering for just a moment before control returned to his face. You're mistaken, he said gently. This meeting is confidential. So is theft, she replied. She placed the flash drive on the table. No shouting, no accusations. Only a small object that changed everything. The chairman hesitated, then nodded to the technical officer. Files appeared on the screen. At first they were ordinary spreadsheets, then the transfers. Then the shell companies, then the contracts. Gasps broke the silence. Executives leaned forward, reading numbers they recognized too well. She spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. These accounts show money taken from the Children's Health Foundation and routed through 3 subsidiaries before reaching private clinics overseas. The clinics are registered under false medical research permits. The patient consent forms were altered. Faces turned pale. One director stood up, hands shaking. This can't be real. It is, she said, and there are recordings too. A video played. Her ex-husband's voice filled the room, calm and precise, discussing how public donations could be reallocated to fund high-risk experimental opportunities without regulatory attention. No one spoke. When the video ended, the room felt smaller. Security was called. Lawyers arrived. Phones began vibrating across the table as messages and alerts spread faster than anyone could stop them. The billionaire tried to speak, but this time his voice failed. This is private, he whispered to her, not to the room. We can talk. She looked at him quietly. I tried, she said. By evening the news was everywhere. The hero had fallen. Headlines spoke of betrayal, illegal trials, stolen charity funds, and secret clinics. Stock prices collapsed. Board members resigned. Investigations opened in 3 countries. Reporters searched for the mysterious whistleblower. They never found her. She left the building before the cameras arrived. The next weeks were chaos for the company and justice for many others. Frozen accounts were released back to hospitals. Pension funds were restored. Families received explanations, compensation, and apologies that came too late but still mattered. Several executives were arrested. Her ex-husband disappeared from public life, his name replaced by court case numbers and quiet legal statements, and she returned to her small room. She refused interviews. She declined offers from journalists who promised fame and protection. She sent the last of her evidence anonymously to the authorities and deleted the copies from her laptop. When a nonprofit organization asked who had saved their hospital, she simply donated part of her small savings and wrote, "From someone who believes in second chances." Months later, she found new work at a modest accounting firm. No one there knew her past, no one treated her as special, and she preferred it that way. One evening, the young clerk from her old department called her, crying again, but this time with relief. "They restored my father's pension," she said. "We're okay now. I don't know who fixed it, but thank you for listening to me that day." She closed her eyes and smiled. "I'm glad it worked out," she replied. Years passed. The story became a case study in business schools. The anonymous whistleblower, students debated motives, revenge or justice, love or anger. They never guessed the truth, that she had once loved the man she destroyed, that she had waited not for revenge but for the moment when silence would hurt more people than speaking. One winter morning, she visited the small children's hospital that had reopened with restored funding. In the lobby hung a plaque, "In gratitude to those who protect the unseen." No names, just words. She stood there for a long time, then turned and left quietly, because the world celebrates heroes who shout, but sometimes the bravest kindness happens in silence. When a woman signs divorce papers without anger, when she accepts being forgotten, when she carries a secret heavy enough to break empires, and chooses not revenge but mercy for the innocent, and justice for the powerless, and dignity for herself. Thanks for watching my video.